Everybody, Rob here with Rentwell on Living Well with Rentwell. We have a repeat guest. Super excited to bring Mr. Oneill back on the show. How you doing today, brother?
Wonderful, man. Glad to be here again.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to have you back here. Yours was one of our more popular episodes. And I'm going to just jump right into this, right? So between both of us, we've done hundreds of renovations. We have both built our own respective portfolios. We've learned a lot doing that, a lot of value add type properties. And as we were preparing for this episode and building up to this, and we have some really cool announcements coming. So Rich and I are teaming up on a book about remodeling, and specifically remodeling cost, timelines, what we call scope of work. And I'm going to pay homage to Drew Farnese, who was the first one to say that I heard scope of work services. What he said at his REI back then was, you cannot come up with a budget until you come up with your scope of work. And I know
Absolutely.
You believe in this. I know that you've built a company. What's great about Rich is he's done enough deals, real estate transactions, to then see a need in the market and literally build a company that helps with that need. And then Rich and I are partnering up to basically take that and put it on steroids. We're writing a book about scope of work services. Number one, because we need it to scale our own portfolios. That's a given. And then also we see a need within the market, because you can get online and you can figure out your sales price, your future comp. There's a lot of realtors that can do that. You can also know what a property will rent for. And most of the times you know what somebody is asking for a property. My experience has been sometimes when you're buying directly, they want you to give them the price, which is fine. Yep. So then, Rich, talk to us about this middle ground, right? You have the future ARV, you have the current price. You're not sure if you're going to maybe sell it or rent it. And then there's this middle ground. Why do so many people, including working with contractors, struggle with the middle ground?
Yeah, so it's always that question of, what is this thing going to cost to renovate? And I can't answer that for you, right? We have to figure out exactly what it is you want. So imagine you saying, hey, bake me a cake, right? Okay, I might give you a vanilla one layer, something real simple cake, right? And you were thinking, oh no, I want the one that's all decorated. I want it to be red velvet, all this stuff. And you weren't clear enough with me. I wasn't clear enough with you what I was going to deliver, right? That happens every day in our real estate transactions, every day. So it's hard to define what that is unless you are the one telling what your vision is. And that's where the scope of work comes in.
So let's take the cake analogy and directly apply it to something that is part of our scope of work services, right? Which is, I'm gonna use an example of a bathroom.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, how much is a bathroom? Okay. Well, are we replacing all of the drain lines? Are we replacing all of the supply lines? Are we putting on quarter turn shutoffs on each of the supply lines? Are we reconfiguring the bathroom? Are we doing tile shower walls? Or is the tub the correct size where we can do direct to stud shower liners? Like, just that right there is, it's
you just described a difference of $5,000 between
yes,
each end.
Exactly. And that's not $5,000 on a $500,000 budget. That's $5,000 on maybe a $5,000 budget. That's the difference of having a $10,000 bathroom fully remodeled. You will have zero maintenance costs for the next 10 years. That's the difference of, most of these properties, right? You and I are both in the Philadelphia market. So we're buying properties that some of are 100 years old. A lot of times that bathroom wasn't even there in that current configuration when the property was built. Many times builders were incentivized to get things done cheaper back then, right? Still like they are today. So instead of having maybe a 2x8, you have a 2x6. And that's why your bathroom is sagging, because it didn't have that certain configuration. Somebody changed where one of the drains was, and they cut the 2x6 in half. If it's not even right.
We see it all the
let
time.
alone the last landlord that let it leak for 30 years.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the difference, that $5,000 difference, when you add that to another bathroom, when you add that to a kitchen, when you add that to the electrical system, that's where somebody's thinking they're going to spend $50,000 on a property, and now they're at 80.
Yep.
And
or 100.
It's always, or the 100, and it's the contractor's fault. The contractor's the bad guy. And talk to us about what you've helped to solve this in the marketplace, this middle ground.
Sure. So let me start with the standard experience, right? You walk in with your contractor and they kind of walk through a little bit. They do this thing, they look around, and 10 minutes later, they spit a number at you, right? And you say either you're crazy, that's way too expensive, or okay, cool, that's great, let's do it. So the problem there is, think about everything you missed when you just walked through there. So what we started doing is we take 3 hours at least in a single family property on site. And we walk through every single room with our 1,000+ line spreadsheet. And we look at every little detail in every little room. So we'll walk into a bedroom. We'll test all the outlets. Are they grounded? Are they not? Is the polarity reversed? How many of them are there? Right? So we go through, count those. There's a hole patch in the drywall that we need. That's a 12 by 12. That's going to be X square feet. And we do that for every category, right? So there's drywall, plumbing, electric, flooring, trim, doors, all of those things. And we basically take stock of the building, right? What do you currently have? And generally we have some direction from you where you want to be price wise. And we'll try to make some calls on, okay, this door is not perfect, but they've only got a $35,000 budget. So we're going to leave it and we're just going to paint it, right? We're going to try and make it as good as we can. It's not going to be perfect. And we always call those things out. Like, this door was, there was maybe a nick in it and it looks fine, but we have to call this out. Yeah. So by the time we're done with that, now we have a fully comprehensive scope that ends up being several hundred lines long. And now we've taken out all the ambiguity in the process, so that now you're looking at a project and okay, I'm getting 6-panel doors in the front bedroom, the back bedroom, and the first floor closet, but the rest of the doors are staying. In the kitchen, we're going to get 12 new kitchen cabinets. We're going to have 20 square feet of granite. We're going to have 4 new hi-hats in the kitchen, right? We have all of that detailed out. Think about what that can do for your project versus the guy that comes in and says, 40 grand, right? Because when you're expecting what I just described, at the end of the project, you're going to walk in and say, wait, where are my hi-hats?
That's right.
Oh, that wasn't in my scope.
Yep.
Oh, those are just new kitchen cabinet doors. You didn't even put in new cabinets. Yeah, that wasn't in my scope. That's what I told you I was doing. Yep. And maybe they did or didn't, but it was never in writing, and who knows? So by taking out all that ambiguity, my price is probably going to come in higher than you were expecting. Right? That's normally the case with my clients. Right. But what I explain to them is that price is going to be the price, because I know every little detail about what I'm doing. When the guy comes in for 40 grand, at some point, you're going to catch one of those things where, oh, I thought you were doing this. No, I wasn't doing that. Here's my scope.
Right.
Or here's my price for that.
Right.
And now they've got you captive, and they're going to give you a change order that's going to be maybe a 50% margin instead of the 30% margin they originally quoted you.
Sure. Or maybe it can't even be done. Maybe it's
too late.
I've done buildings where we were being told that the plumbing was getting a different story, right? Where it actually wasn't getting done, but it was agreed upon. There's also that as well, because there's a certain margin that contractors are going to need to make. There's also a certain quality standard that you would want to do. I like doors, for instance. My scope of work on bathroom doors is they're solid door. Solid on bathrooms and bedrooms, hollow on closets. I want one coat of primer if it's not already primed, and I want 2 actual coats of paint. I can't tell you how many times I walk in and they're still trying to get away with that one coat. And I know that if I have 2 coats, I have a better chance of just of washing the door down in the future versus having to repaint it. Because when it gets repainted again, then they get the paint all over the door handle. It drives me nuts. It looks trashy. So what you're saying is that you are defining the actual scope of work. And then what I know that we've worked together on the past with things is it's almost like then there's no obligation from there. If you want to, here's the price we could do it for. If you want to shop this around, then the homeowner, the landlord, the property manager could go to any number of contractors, any number of subs, physically send them the scope of work and say, I want you to give me a price off of this. They could also say, hey, this is what I think it should cost.
Can you do it for this?
This is where I really think this should be ending up. And we're in the process, you and I, of, as we do this collaboration, is I've built a slightly different enterprise where I'm using mostly all W-2 labor, vertically integrated, and we've done now close to 100 units between houses and apartments and basements and kitchens and my foreman knows. So the weakness there is my foreman knows that we want a certain laundry room set up and we want a certain door. So it's not written down anymore. He has it up here. So he just kind of knows. That's the only time is if you've done probably a dozen or so renovations with your contractor that you can walk in and be like, hey man, how much do you think?
Do it again. Yeah.
And just do it again. You're like Pine Street, or just you name the street and you say, just do that again. And if you're buying a lot of the similar asset classes, that works. We're not talking about that. We're talking about an investor or a landlord or a property manager that may not be very clear on what they even want. They don't know if they want to have all recessed lights in the living room or the kitchen, or if they want to do some space planning, right? And then it becomes this contentious relationship where they usually go with the lowest number. And usually that number is, if you can even get a single piece of paper, it's one number at the bottom of it. Right. It's paint. Yeah. Flooring. Right. And then it's one number.
Bathroom remodel.
It hasn't actually said, what does that mean, that the whole room's going to be painted almond color? Because that's what's in the contractor said. Ceiling, doors, walls.
Same color.
Almond.
Same paint.
Satin. Flat. Done. And they're thinking, no, man, I want the popular gray on the walls with the white ceiling, and I want the semi-gloss trim. Like, if then that is a completely different paint job, one to the other.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up another point that I want to come back to, which is, it could take you a dozen deals with the same contractor to get to that level of, hey, do it again. What we're trying to do is shorten that curve so that it's first one, you got it. Right. And now with that playbook, right, you're basically making the playbook on that first one. You can either take that same scope and just repeat it and say, here are all the details. Or you can go in and do it again and say, hey, this one is not going to be a Section 8 rental. This one is going to be a luxury apartment. Now I need to go and change, one flush mount light in every bedroom isn't going to cut it. Right. We need the hi-hats in there.
Right.
Or
not
hollow doors.
Exactly. Going to cut it.
Right. Not having a dishwasher or all of those things. Now you can change it, but you've got the playbook for the different asset classes. And more than that, when you get to the level of detail that we're talking about getting to, you can not only describe your scope to your contractor, you can assign material SKUs to each one of those pieces, right? You can build your material list based off of that, right? So when you get to the level of detail we know that we're going to put 30 hi-hats in this building. So I'm going to go to Home Depot, get a price on 30 hi-hats, or I'm going to go to Denny Electric or whatever the local electric shop. Now, at the beginning of the project, if you're set up with your contractor where you're paying labor only, at the beginning of the project, they can be starting demo. You can be shopping material, right? And you can set up bulk orders, or you can set up an arrangement with the supplier where, hey, I want this order released at this time, this order released at this time. So you can set that up. You can take that scope of work. You can generate what I call a purchase order, right? And the larger construction companies use purchase orders, right? You are not touching a single thing on this job site until you have a signed, approved purchase order. So the purchase order literally just describes the scope of work, but that is an actual contract, right? So I do this with every single one of my subs, where I send them a purchase order, they sign and approve the purchase order, and within there it has payment terms, it has everything else in there, but it has the specifics. So they go try to put in 1/2-inch drywall instead of 5/8 drywall, and I have it specified in the purchase order. I have every right to go to them and say, no, pull it all out, put it back in. That's right. With 5/8. I'm not going to do that, but that's an extreme example.
Well, if that was the ceiling of a garage or somewhere where it had to be,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And permits are pulled and there's inspectors coming in. I mean, you hear the horror stories about, tenants living in a property and how they can leave it. There's more horror stories around the construction, the remodeling, specifically where our niche is on this scope of work services is the remodeling of single family homes, row homes, condos, and small multifamily up to about, once you get to a certain point, the only thing that really changes is how the common areas are set up, right? So we're going to get them up to that 6 to 15 unit, really dialed in, the first version of the software. So what Rich and I have collaborated on is a book is coming. Okay, it's about 60-70% written, and this is a book that not only gives some pricing of how these bathrooms come together and what the scope of work services look like. There's also a lot of actual meat in there of why we would do certain things when we do it.
Right.
And
that's our experience. Yeah.
Replacing based upon our experience, right? Which if you combine them, we're well over 30 years here, right? And well over 100 plus renovations from cosmetic to full gut renovations, and we are active investors. So it's a real time account. Go ahead.
As or more important, we both have well over 100 units that we personally own. You've managed 5,000 doors collectively by the time it's all said and done. So we know what happens on a tenant turnover.
Yes.
And we can combine that with the construction work that we've done to know, okay, I made the critical mistake in my early years of putting carpet everywhere, right? That's an expensive turnover. Right. Okay. You've clearly done enough with paint to know what kind of paint to use, what's going to hold up. I've got my bulletproof rental list. Yeah.
You have so what Rich is referring to, he also has a list of eliminators, right? Of things that we don't put into rental properties. On that flooring topic, I've made the mistake of putting luxury vinyl plank snap together flooring in remodeled apartments without properly fixing the subfloor.
Right.
And what we realized is by the energy it would take to properly fix the subfloor, that extra amount per square foot, I can now afford to put in 3/4 inch sanded in place, oak hardwood flooring that I think looks better. Some people walk in, they think it's a sheet of vinyl, and then they feel, they're like, wow, this is real wood. Yeah, that's a 30-year flooring. Whereas the plank, if it's installed perfectly, it will last, but it's very rare unless you're in new construction that the plank holds up. We've all walked into that apartment where and 5 years in, everything is starting to separate, and the actual pieces themselves might be okay, but it was the subfloor that caused the failure of the overall floor. Those are very costly mistakes, especially when you're building a portfolio and you think you're good on the capital expenditures, and then you're 5 years in and you're realizing, oh my God, I got to spend 20 grand to renovate this place potentially. It's not just, some cleaning and some some sprucing up. So Rich has a list of all things to eliminate. That way, when the tenant moves out, you're not fixing the toilet paper holder, because it was a freestanding toilet paper holder. It wasn't one that's been, ripped down from the wall and now it's a drywall patch and now it's a repaint of the bathroom or it's putting up wainscoting. So
I love when I get a 2x6 big beefy thing right behind the toilet where I know the toilet paper holder is going to go, and I lag bolt the dang thing into it, right? That thing's not coming off. You can sit on that. It's not going anywhere.
And that's a real life example. I think I've seen that in one of your rehabs. So, so we have a book coming. And the book gets into some really cool things. We're having fun putting that together. Thank you for that collaboration, Rich, man. It's super cool. And then from there, we have a DIY software where basically the book is the instruction guide for the software. One of the first things after soft costs and permits, and we do these floor plans right through. There's different ways to get these. It's, let's say, removing of personal property. It's like, is that a small pickup truck? Is that a U-Haul? Is it a 20-yard dumpster? Is it a 40-yard dumpster? Right? What are all these things? And a lot of times when you're meeting with the contractor, they'll work out a labor price, but you need to figure out some of these extra costs. How many dumpsters are you going to need? Right. What is the material going to be running? Right. And then you don't want to be light on material, because then that means that they didn't put all the paint. I have a property that's supposed to get 2 coats of exterior paint. And I made the mistake of letting the contractor buy the paint. Still don't have that receipt from the paint, because I know they only bought enough for the 1 coat. So I got short on my labor and I got short on my materials. So it's no wonder that it's not lasting 15 years on that paint job. It lasted about 7. So this is what the book breaks out. The software is a DIY version. Then we have, which is what we're really driving to here, where anywhere in the country, Rich and I are setting up a company that will basically help you, the homeowner, the landlord, the property manager, the contractor, to define your scope of work services with our specialists trained to help guide them through the property. And I think it's going to be very successful. I know that it would have really accelerated me on my own journey. Experience is what you get just after you needed it. And on this remodeling side, it takes a lot of experience to really know what you're doing. And then it's like a lot of work to even find the subs and the contractors, the property managers that can actually get the work done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to help describe what that service is really going to do for people, because it helps me tremendously, right? I've done these things. I could go through and do this on my own, but I don't, because I walk in there and the first thing I want to do, the first place my mind goes is all the problems that I can see, right? That distracts me from going through that list, right? So I have Kira on the other end of the line. She's on the phone with me. I'm wearing my headphones. She's gotten a 360 tour of the building, right? And she can be in the room with me, so to speak, but she's got her double monitors and she's way more organized than I am. Yeah. So, we'll walk into a room and I'll start blabbering about these things. And she says, stop. What's the dimension of the room?
Yes.
Okay. I measure the room. And then I'll say, but what about, no, stop. How many outlets? Exactly. Right. You and I took that. It's not a disc profile, but it's the culture index thing. We're both daredevils and we want to go out there and do things and move quickly.
No break. Let me fix a problem. It's going to look like Swiss cheese at the end, and then we're going to be pissed off. Yep.
So now I have this very deliberate, very steady, meticulous person walking me through, telling me exactly what I need to be getting. Right. And the difference is that I don't have to do that running over to a computer, typing it in or doing this. She's sitting there taking notes of what I'm describing. She's, walking me through. What about that hole up in the corner, right? When we get to the drywall section. Yeah. And it slows me down. It gets me to a point where I can get all the data that I need, right? We were talking with your foreman, right? And the standard practice, even for a really, really organized guy, is to have a notepad and they're walking through highlighting the problems.
Yes.
Right? But that doesn't give us what we need. That gives us 60% of what we need, but it doesn't capture everything else. Right. So, you go back and try to build your price, your scope, your whatever, and your 1 page of notes gets you maybe 60% of the way there. But, oh, shoot, how many outlets do I need to do? Yep. Oh, shoot, how many windows? Right? I didn't pay attention to it because I was so focused on that, sagging floor that I need to fix. So this helps us go through meticulously and get all of the details that we need.
Yeah. Or it's, I'm going to subconsciously ignore that sagging floor because I already know that this apartment needs more work than what I kind of thought it was going to need. And I'm just going to put it at them. I'm just going to, I have this number in my head of where I need to be or how much time I have to do it. And I'm just going to kind of ignore it. And the thing with our world is nothing can get ignored for long.
Yeah, exactly.
It's real work to do these somebody's going to be living there. There could be an issue either now or shortly into the future. What caused that floor to sag, right? And that could take an extra hour. That could take another site visit. I've been in buildings now where I'm like, I won't buy it until I can open up some of the walls. Oh, there's no access. Well, we're going to need to put access, right? Because of, we're not saying that we're going to eliminate any issue in the future, right? However, what happens is for the novice investor, they get a home inspection. Mm-hmm. And the challenge with the home inspection is that it doesn't tell you what things are actually going to cost, how long they're actually going to take, or what you should do. It's basically documenting this is what you're buying. Right. The sink doesn't leak.
Right.
Okay, but what if the countertop's older? What if we know that this is going to be a rental? And for instance, for me, it's all granite countertops everywhere. Now I'm switching to darker granite countertops. I'm gonna try that versus just the lighter color, because granite does need to be sealed every so often and use special cleaning products and things like that. Otherwise it stains and it's porous. And this is this middle road. And what I also hope will happen, and I'm sure you've already seen this because you've already done this for one of my buildings. I was under agreement with 10 units in West Philadelphia across 2 buildings.
Yep.
And I did a scope of work, and I had a partner at the time who was going to do a lot of the work. Okay. Then that didn't work out. So I called up Rich, and I called up your firm, and you spent 2 days, 2 half days at one building.
Yep.
Right. And then
that was only 4 units.
4 units, 2 half days, then another about a week turnaround. Right, to be able to get to, hey, Rob, this is your number. And I knew that it was very thorough. I knew that, okay, maybe my price could be a little bit better here, or maybe oh, wow, okay, that's a little less over there. For what the equalizer was, okay, this is a better project for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I was happy to make that investment. And we just settled on those last week. We got a wholesaler involved and basically did like we sold it. I didn't buy it.
Right.
And that is, it's not the deal. Like, it's avoiding the landmine deals.
Right.
That's really where the ones that are just going to take another half a dozen renovations to make up for. And the challenge is sometimes those deals can be your best deals. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was super reassuring, is because I have my own kind of napkin math. Then I was able to get your report, right? Paid for that report, gladly paid for that report. And then I was able to really look at it. I could have also taken that back to the seller and said, look, this is what this needs. It's not $50,000 and here's these single line items. Like, this is 400 lines. This is exactly how many outlets. This is the challenge with your subfloor. This is the leak over here. This is, there's no insulation. You didn't factor that in. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So super excited to be here with you. Book, software, and then nationwide scope of work services where the property manager, landlord, investor would be physically on site. We have a call center being built with specialists, right? Yep. That are going to guide them through, be on the other end. It's like Apollo to mission control.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
What else do we have to cover in this first of many future episodes, Rich?
Yeah, many more to come. Last piece I want to say is that there are some people that will not need this, right? They need to fit 2 criteria. The first one is they need to be extremely meticulous, right? If you're going to do the level that we're asking you to do, because I think that's the way that it should be done, and we've shown that it's the way that it should be done, you need to be extremely meticulous. You need to be able to follow a process step by step when there might be gunshots outside. You need to still be able to follow this process step by step. Gunshots is extreme, but you get the idea. So you need to be that person. You also need to be the person that knows construction very, 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 very well and has some experience. Now, Rob, I don't know about you, but I can't think of a single person that meets those 2 criteria at the same time. Right?
It's usually one or the other.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do, is bridge this gap. And if you are that person, call me. I've got 7 jobs for you. But that's it. So looking forward to talking more about this. Yeah. Let's go make some magic.
What you're saying is that they can read the book, they can purchase the software from us, and they can do it on their own.
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about, because you can be meticulous and have construction knowledge, but if you don't have the repository, the workbook to put it in and actually make sense out of it. Because the other thing that comes from this is, and there's small versions that are, we call them 18 lines, where it's everything from soft costs and removing those personal properties down to fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, light bulbs, blinds, final cleaning, right? It's like 18 phases on any rehab, and that gets expounded to the 45 lines that we do for remodeling projects. And where Rich's workbook is 1,000 is because every apartment needs its own scope of work. Common areas need a scope of work. Exterior areas, basements, right? Excuse me. So that is then to get that level of detail, right? It's really at least a 2-person team,
right?
And what we're going to be providing on this national scale is the other half of that team. Got you the workbook, good, and we have the scope of work specialist that's going to be there on the phone live in real time to walk through these. And then the next thing from there would be a professional consultation with a Rich or a Rob level that's getting into space planning, design, the overall investment, and what's the ARV to what's these rehabs, and then how close is this real? Like, is there anything that could be scaled back or done in phases? Right? Like, okay, maybe leave the kitchen right now, and we're going to do electric baseboard, electric bathrooms, exterior roof. Like, do those right now. Your rent's going to be a little bit less, and then in about 5 years' time, I have these buildings are in evolution. I have my longest one has been almost 20 years, getting ready to do the kitchen for the second time. Why? Because I never fixed the subfloor the first time around. Why? Because I chose IKEA cabinets that weren't actually real wood, and there were, like, the sink has overflowed before, right? So now all the laminate's peeling off, right? So if I would have done this from the beginning, I would have spent a lot more money up front, but I wouldn't be doing a kitchen in only like 18 years later.
Yep.
But I couldn't afford it back then. So it was okay. So it's also, what it also helps is for a future capital needs to know what is needed in these buildings, because the whole thing on real estate investing comes down to the velocity of money. How much are you going to need? At what time? What's going to be the cost of that capital? How does it relate to all these other properties that we have going on? And I'm super excited about it. I mean, we're real life users of this. Super grateful for you, Rich, to be back on here. We're really excited about this collaboration. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Rich or myself, it's going to be in the show notes, our cell phones and our emails. And I will leave you, Rich, with any of the final parting words, my friend.
I think it's mostly been said. We're looking forward to working with each and every one of you, because unless you're that person with the two pieces, we really believe that this is going to be helpful for you, and looking forward to working with you.
Let us help you build wealth in real estate, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right, my friend. Well, great to see you on here today. I wish you a great week. I wish all the listeners a great week, and we'll let you know when we're ready to go.
Looking forward to it.
Take care. Thank you for listening to Living Well with Rent Well. We hope you loved that episode.
Please be sure to head over to our website at rentwell.com/vision. We're giving away our free program called Vision Through Purposeful Action. If you're a busy person, if you struggle with finding the time and priorities, or if you're experiencing procrastination and overwhelm, this free course will help you with that.
We wish you a blessed day. Thank you for tuning in, and check in later.